Now the motorcade will very shortly start to move out. Sheriff Bill Decker, Dallas County Sheriff, driving his own car, personally escorting it with the chief of police, the presidential car, moving out. The president and first lady. Big, beautiful Lincoln.
All right, we are here. No, we are not live. This is a pre-recording.
What are you telling them that for?
Well, we may be live in the chat. I don't know. Hopefully,
okay.
Mark is in the chat.
If I wake up on time on Tuesday, I'll go in the chat. But right now, we're recording.
We are recording. It is a premiere. We may or may not be in the chat, but we really appreciate the support, and I hope you guys are talking together. We'll be back for the regular show next week, but this is a rare opportunity to get with a legend, Vince Palamara. And Mark has talked about how in the Kennedy research community, there are different lanes, if you will, but not Mark Lane. Oh, Mark Lane too.
Mark Lane too, yeah.
Well, technically. And people kind of specialize. And Vince Palamara is a specialist in the Secret Service. And that's why this is our History of Secret Service Part 3 with Vince Palamara to kind of tie it together.
Very good.
So, Vince, how are you doing today?
Really good. Thanks a lot, Eric and Mark, for having me on. Much appreciated. Yeah, it's been looking forward to this. I've heard nothing but good things about your show. I know you guys reach a large audience.
Yeah, it's getting crazy, Vince. It's getting crazy.
Seems like it, yeah.
Where are you? Are you down in Pittsburgh, bro? Where are you?
Pittsburgh, PA. Yep.
Wow. I mean, Vince Palamara, off the cuff, this sounds like a great sports name. Like the quarterback for the Steelers. Vince
I'm a
Palamara.
Huge Steeler fan.
Of course you are.
Football, NFL fan. I mean, I'm a mild Pirate fan, but I love Steelers. Yeah, and Dr. Weck comes from here too.
That's right. Dr.
Sarah Weck. Also, the late Tom Wilson, who was on the Men Who Killed Kennedy Part 5, was image enhancement, and also Gerald Custer, who did the X-ray technician at Bethesda.
Oh, whoa! It's an all-star team down there, Vince.
Yeah.
Oh, we saw Cyril in Dallas this past year.
I interviewed him.
Eric interviewed. We were sitting next to him at the dinner there for COPPA, and I guess they're doing something for the 60th in Pittsburgh next year. Are you going to go over there? And I mean, or you're there, so what do you care?
Yeah, I could more likely do something here, but I know Dr. Wecht and I a couple years ago during COVID, we went downtown and filmed something for a UK company by the JFK assassination. In fact, the title is simply The Assassination of JFK. Unfortunately, it took a lone nut spin. I know that I like my segment, I like Dr. Weck's segment. Everything else was talking heads supporting Oswald did it. But having said that, it's been aired several times in the UK, Australia, a couple other places. Yeah. So.
Wow. Okay. So just to introduce you to our guests, I mean, I know you because I've read your stuff over the years. I mean, you're the top guy when it comes to analysis of the Secret Service, the pulling of the guard. I mean, the stuff that we're all going to get into now and the stripping of security. I have a bunch of questions, but, you have a new book out, which I wanted to promote and tell our listeners about, which is called Honest Answers, about the murder of President John F. Kennedy. You have a copy of it there. Yeah. We'll put a link up, Eric, at the bottom of the screen so people can order it from Amazon. This is
much appreciated. Thanks.
Oh, no, dig this. I mean, of course I've read, as everybody has, Survivor's Guilt, which is the first one is just must have for anybody who follows this show. Here's Vince's copy, but this is, mine is dog-eared because I've gone through this over the years. When did this come out, Vince?
It came out in 2013. I had privately published it back in the late 1990s, but it's massively updated. In fact, the original bears very little resemblance to the one that came out in 2013, 10 years ago for the 50th. And so it was like 20 years of work went into that one. Yeah.
That's a masterpiece. And this one, which is covers much more than the Secret Service. That's the point of this book is what Vince is doing in this book is kind of what we're doing on the show. Vince has taken all the different theories and given his opinion on each one. If I'm not speaking out of school here, I went through it, with your question and answer of yourself, do this and this, do you believe this and that? And we were on the same page. I got to say 99%, Vince. I was shocked.
Great.
I really was. I mean, and
That's good
look,
to know, yeah.
yeah, no, I was shocked of how accurate and aligned our opinions were. And I've never met you. I've never talked to you. It was just, I've read, a couple of your books, but your question and answer thing in the book about different conspiracy theories, true or not true, what Vince actually believes, people, is a great part of the whole book, because he says this theory, this theory, this theory, and he says honestly yes and no. And a couple of them, like myself, you were on the fence. I mean, you're brutally honest in the book, like the shooting of Walker. You said could go either way, and I've gone back and forth on the shooting of Walker.
Yeah.
Like I've said to Eric, and Eric knows this. If everything's a conspiracy, nothing's a conspiracy. Everything
Yeah.
can't be right.
Right.
So, and you talked about the backyard photo and how that probably is real. And I've said the same thing over the years.
Just used for a different purpose.
Right.
I think it was part of Oswald's intelligence games, and it was twisted, like a media spin afterwards to make it look like, aha, there he is with the rifle and pistol he used to assassinate President Kennedy and kill Officer Tippit, when it could have had another original meaning, and it was just a matter of being twisted. Now, the original early arguments for photo manipulation were compelling at one time, but I just think to the advent of time, the fact that Marina came out and said she took the photos really was the end of the ball game for me. I'm open-minded, but I lean more towards they're legit. But it's not like, oh, that's so bad. It's it's a matter of interpretation of a lot of evidence.
Right.
Like,
Now, I mean, who played with those photos? Did Roscoe White play with those photos when he was at Dallas PD, or there's a couple of alterations of them later on? I mean,
yeah, there's that theory. Now, the interesting thing that goes to show you that again, nothing's black and white. Roscoe White, I know people were excited in 1990 when it came forward. Ricky White, his dad, saying conveniently the diaries was really taken for the FBI. But to make a long story short,
where was the diary, Vince? Where is it? Where is it?
I think that did in Ricky White's story. He had just 15 minutes of fame. And
right.
That was it. But there was tantalizing parts. He was a rookie police officer in training.
Yep.
His wife worked for Ruby, danced for Ruby. There's a picture of them together. He had the third mysterious Oswald backyard photo.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean about you can't dismiss everything. Just like I'm telling you right now, Beverly Oliver, the Babushka lady. I don't think she was the Babushka lady, but she definitely was there in the Colony Club, more than likely knew Jack Ruby. There's pictures of her from November 22nd. I think it's Dallas Times-Herald, maybe Dallas Morning News, but I think it's Dallas Times-Herald. But in any effect, photos right there, Beverly Oliver, captioned photos there at the Colony Club. That night they took somebody took the time to say these clubs are closed, and there she is. So again, some people go too extreme. They say that, oh, she's a fraud, or they go the other way and say, oh, no, she's one of the grassy no witnesses. I think there's the truth in between for a lot of things. Yeah.
Right. Well, and you're honest in the book, because what you don't believe, you say you don't believe, and what you do believe, you do believe. But I mean, you get into certain things that it's not originally in your wheelhouse, which is what I found interesting, that you go out on a limb on certain things that obviously you know about, but it's not your superpower, which is the Secret Service.
Yeah.
But you do go into, I wanted to ask you about Thomas Shipman while I have you on the air. Explain who Thomas Shipman is for the audience at home, Vince.
Thomas Shipman was one of the White House detail Secret Service agent drivers. Very small amount of them were, given the responsibility of driving the president and first lady, for that matter. And it was Thomas B. Shipman, Samuel Kinney, William Greer, and sometimes the special agent in charge of that detail, the garage detail, they called it back then. Now it's transportation detail, Morgan Guise, Gies. And make a long story short here, with Thomas Shipman was, he died October 14th, 1963, a little over a month before the assassination at Camp David of an alleged heart attack. Now, I only found this out in the late 1990s. I'll boil this down real quickly for your audience. But for all intents and purposes, other than former agents who are mostly passed away that knew him, 99.999% of the public and nobody in the research community had ever heard this guy. Well, I got a hold of a manuscript called A Million Miles of Presidents by George McNally, former Secret Service agent. He was the head of the White House Communication Agency. And it was just a privately printed Kinko's type of thing. What happened is he died in 1970, but his widow took his manuscript in the early 80s and made it available. And, it's a rare book, but getting to the heart of the matter. I was reading the book, and all of a sudden it says, Thomas Shipman, one of the drivers of President Kennedy, died suddenly. And this is like 1997. I'm like, what? And then from there, I investigated further, and then I found old obituary newspaper archives, dredged the archives. I interviewed former agents, and now this zooms us, in the interest of time, up to the current where I'm at now. And that's why it's in a couple of my books. The Association of Former Agents of the United States Secret Service didn't even have him listed as one of the agents who passed away until little old me started talking about it. And all of a sudden, in 2001, shortly before 9/11, no connection, but shortly before 9/11, they had an online roll call, and all of a sudden they listed him in chronological order. Now, out of the tens of thousands of agents who have passed away, there's only like 20 some agents, maybe it's up to 30 now, have died in the line of duty. And one of them is Thomas B. Shipman. And the thing is, I found his surviving family members. His wife died many years ago, but he has a daughter, Laura, out there in Colorado. And no remuneration. She didn't want a penny. She didn't want any fame, fortune. In fact, she was very nice, but in a very nice way. She goes, I'm going to give you this information. That's it. I don't want to go any further with this. I thank you for your tribute to my father and that. She says the family was urged to bury him quickly. They themselves were even wondering, wait, he just passed his annual physical and he had no heart trouble and he dies of a heart attack at Camp David. And here's the other thing. This is what's really amazing. He had relatives in Dallas and was looking forward to the Texas trip, specifically the Dallas trip. And now the family speculation. They said, oh, if he would have driven Kennedy, he never would have been inept as Bill Greer was. He would have stepped on the gas. He loved President Kennedy, whatnot, which is tantalizing of itself. We'll get to that in a second. But the shipment, the bottom line is everybody talks, and justifiably so. There's the book Hit List by Richard Belzer and David Wayne talk about the mysterious deaths. And obviously, they're all talking about the deaths after the fact, after the assassination. Here's one a month before. A fit Secret Service agent takes his annual physical and literally dies in his sleep at Camp David. And the family just can't believe it. 2 days later, he's buried. There's no toxicology test. Heart attack is an old country doctor thing. Okay, he wasn't stabbed or shot. Heart attack. And again, no toxicology test can take weeks or months. And he was
tell the audience who advised the family what medical doctor was involved in the burial and the death certificate and everything else.
None other than Dr. George Berkeley.
Tell the audience who George Berkeley is, man.
George Berkeley was JFK's and later LBJ's physician,
right?
Who saw President Kennedy at Parkland, Bethesda, who intimated the back of the head was gone. He also said that to a colleague of his, and this is an oral history that came out in the early millennium. But it's just amazing. This fit agent just dies of a heart attack. 2 days later, he's buried. He's urged to be buried fast. The family's all wondered why, and Dr. Berkeley's the one who took care of it.
Well, this is Admiral George Berkeley, who on a number of occasions in the Kennedy oral history attempted to reach out to people in the JFK research community saying that he wanted to come clean. If you
Henry
can go,
Hurt. Yep.
Henry Hurt was one of them, one of the JFK researchers. What do you know? What do you know about this, Vince? What do you know about this?
What I think what it was Dr. Berkeley, judging by the trail he left behind, talked to the for the JFK library, that he didn't be cared to be quoted on the number of shots and the whole bullet business. Okay, that's his oral history. Well, then the House Select Committee, he reaches out, and his attorney, Dr. William Illig, his attorney, and says that Dr. Berkeley has information indicating others besides Oswald were involved. And then when push comes to shove, that's it. He disappears. Well, he contacted out of the blue both, what's his name? Kurtz, Michael Kurtz.
Michael Kurtz,
his first name. Michael Kurtz.
Crime and Century author. Good book.
And he also wrote another 2006 compilation book. And he did the same switcheroo. He says, I believe there was a conspiracy. When he was called online, he wanted to renege on everything, but he did tell Dr. Michael Kurtz that the back of the head was gone. He spoke to Henry Hurt of Reasonable Doubt fame in 1982. Also said there was a conspiracy, but he wouldn't go into any more details. And when Henry Hurt pushed further and wanted to know details, he refused to discuss the matter anymore. I know when David Lifton of Best Evidence reached out to Dr. George Berkeley, and he gave him the old runaround. I don't know where you would send a letter to me. I don't know what address you would use. So it's
how about when he dies and his daughter reaches out and reneges, Vince? When
Yeah.
remember
Yeah.
Berkeley's
Dr.
daughter
Berkeley's
did the
daughter.
same thing.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
Go
That's
ahead
right.
on that,
She
brother.
offered,
Go
and then
ahead.
yeah, the Assassination Records Review
Right.
Board reached out, and she was very cooperative at first. Then when push came to shove, she did the same thing, and she disappeared and wouldn't do anything about records. She wouldn't go into detail about anything. They were trying to get, even though he had passed away, and so Dr. Berkeley, Illig and Berkeley, both Illig being his attorney, they were trying to get the office files, see if there was anything there, and she refused to cooperate. I guess it was attorney-client privilege. It was a legal thing. They needed her consent, which she initially gave, and she took it back. But the most amazing thing is, I think, is, and I always run into things blindly, meaning that I don't have an axe to grind. If I would have called the Shipmans up and they would have said, "You're a wacko, he had a heart attack, he had a heart condition," that would have been the end. But no, I went into it blind. There's an old lawyer's adage that don't ever ask a question you don't know the answer to. And that's what I did. And with her, she blew my mind. She said, "Oh no, we've always been suspicious. He was buried quickly. Dr. Berkeley was behind it." And again, she didn't want remuneration. She didn't even want her photo taken, nothing. And then her grandson got involved, said the same thing. The whole family was always
This is all new,
Eric.
That's why this is interesting. This is all new stuff.
It's just a fluke.
Yeah.
It's an unindexed book called A Million Miles of Presidents. And then it's actually not even a published book per se. It was something that his widow took to Kinko's and made X amount of copies. And I think the Last Straw bookshop in Williamsport had some copies. And it floated around Canada, bootlegs. I got a copy of it. But anyway, yeah, it was only because of that. Otherwise, I never would have knew a Shipman either until probably years later, and innocently thought, he's probably out there in the country somewhere. And that's when Sam Kinney and Win Lawson was the lead advance agent, came out to me in correspondence and speaking to them, and said, "Yeah, he was found in one of the cabins up there in Camp David. I think Sam Kinney
found him dead, didn't he, up there? Yeah.
Yep.
Well, this used to be what was known as Shangri-La to people at home, later renamed, right, Vince, to Camp David.
Right. An interesting thing I put in a footnote is that Mike Riley, the head of the Secret Service for FDR, said that that was the training ground for the OSS. Right. And he said this 2 decades before. Yeah. So just grist for the mill that Camp David was all it's meant to be. Just to think of all Anwar Sadat and all the famous celebrities and politicians and leaders of other countries have been there. And of all people, a JFK agent. And here's the really thing, Mark and Eric, this is what's really amazing to me. 10 years later, an agent, Cliff Dietrich, he died in a helicopter crash. Pat Nixon, Richard Nixon, and the daughters all spoke about it, okay? In fact, Pat Nixon even went to his funeral. Now, here's what I'm getting to. JFK is a wonderful man, and I know there couldn't have been any dark heart why he didn't. He never mentioned him. Pierre Salinger never mentioned his death. If it wasn't for some very obscure backwater Maryland newspapers were discovered by a colleague of mine who paid a newspaper fee of like a $200 fee to get them back about 8-9 years ago. We would never know this. We wouldn't even have that. So again, it's definitely, can I prove it a court of law? Oh, it's
but I mean, it's suspicious, and it also leads, obviously, to the replacement by William Greer, a notorious Kennedy hater, right, Vince? From what I remember,
exactly. Yeah, we'll get it
right now. Not an Irish Catholic, but an Irish Protestant, if I recall.
Protestant.
Yeah.
And the thing, he died. You got it, man.
Oh, no. I learned from the master, bro. I learned.
In 1985, Bill Greer passed away, but in 1990, 1991, I spoke to his son, Richard Greer, his only son. He didn't have daughters. Right. Richard was his only child. And I started out, keep in mind, I'm a stranger on the phones before the internet really kicked in or anything. And I asked him some real innocent softball questions. And I got to just what I thought was another softball question. What'd your father think of President Kennedy? And the line went like dead silent. And I thought,
oh my.
So I said, sorry, I have to get the mouse here. Yeah, I said, sorry, are you still there, sir? He goes, yes, I'm still here. So I went to some other questions. I was a little cottonmouth because I was like, wow, what is going on here? I got back to it, and this is the real deal now. I said, if you don't mind, sir, what did your father think of President Kennedy? And he paused. He said, well, we're Methodists, and JFK was Catholic.
Wow, that's dark, bro. That's dark.
It wasn't until about 10 years ago in the Irish Times, literally in Ireland, a major newspaper out there, got in touch with me because they saw my blogs and my articles because my first book had yet to come out. Then they talked about the book later when it came out. And he said, do you realize, Mr. Palamara, that Bill Greer and his father were both part of the Order of the Orange Order. And that was a real anti-Catholic group, to put it mildly. Now, it's for years we know about the bloody wars in Ireland. We know even the Sunday Bloody Sunday by U2 and all that. And this guy wore it on his sleeve. And let's go to Dealey Plaza. Even people like Gerald Posner and Vincent Bugliosi blame the assassination, the success of it, on Bill Greer, because Oswald or no Oswald, conspiracy, no conspiracy. If Greer obeys his training and common sense and hits the gas, Kennedy lives. The
Well, let's get into that right now. Let's stop for a second because I wanted to get into that sequence with William Kellerman, who JFK, who LBJ said was as dumb as a bag of rocks. If I recall, Roy Kellerman.
Right,
Roy Kellerman. I'm sorry.
It's all right. You're good.
So Roy Kellerman tells him, "We've been hit. Get out of line." Right, directly as the headshot, right before the headshot happens. And William Greer not only turns around once, he turns around twice, doesn't he, Vince?
Twice. Yeah, what happened was, for all intents and purposes, people in the research community didn't know about the two looks back. Because either they looked at poor quality Zapruder film footage, or they were so concentrated, and I can understand why, on the Connollys and JFK and Jackie, they weren't looking at the people in the front. So in 1991 in Fredonia, New York, at a third decade conference, I was only 25 years old at the time.
Palamara.
And I was a newbie. In fact, at that time, I hadn't spoken to anybody. I was all into the Warren Commission volumes, just massive reading, but I didn't do any primary research. But I did this paper where I outlined all about Greer, and the audience was stunned. There was Harry Livingstone, George Michael Ivica, Bob Cutler, several other people, and they were like, Vince, I never noticed that the fact he turned around twice. I knew for a fact he turned around once. I didn't know the sequence. If you look at Roy Kellerman's Warren Commission testimony, that's what happens. He said that, he told Greer to get out of line, we've been hit, and he grabbed the radio microphone, Kellerman did. And in those seconds, Greer turns around and stares at Kennedy, and there's a footnote buried in William Manchester's book, The Death of a President. And Roy Kellerman tells William Manchester, Greer then looked in the back of the car. Maybe he didn't believe me. It's like, whoa.
Side note, just on Manchester, do you believe the chapter that he put into his safe was the chapter of the interview that Jackie gave that she believed that LBJ was involved in the assassination of her husband?
There's some of those shenanigans with William Manchester. The big thing for me is, and he caused great historical damage, William Manchester. He did some great stuff, but he also did something. He planted the seeds of, Kennedy had it coming because he ordered the agents off the car. Turns out it wasn't true. That's probably one of the biggest discoveries that's in my first book, all about, the fact that the agents I spoke to all told me that President Kennedy was a very nice man, never interfered with our actions at all. But if you read William Manchester's book, it makes it sound like the major trip before in Tampa, Kennedy turned around and said, "Get those Ivy League charlatans."
You dismantle this repeatedly throughout your work. That is a common thread where you stop everything, go out of your way to show how much these guys loved him and how they did write on the back of the car. In fact, you show it in many videos 900 times in a row where they're riding on the back of the car.
And the fact I got all the brass of the Secret Service. See, Gerald Blaine, Blaine, wrote the Kennedy detail. And again, not to get on a tangent, and this isn't delusions of grandeur, it is what it is. It was because a little old me that Gerald Blaine and later Clint Hill wrote their books. They came out of nowhere. They were both retired. They were fly fishing in Colorado, best friends for 50-some years. And they saw my then online blogs, and they were flabbergasted. I sent a 22-page letter to Clint Hill, registered receipt, requested. I got his private address at the time. No one knew other than literally Mike Wallace, the Haas Select Committee, maybe former members of the Warren Commission. And did I already say Mike Wallace? Okay, yeah. Those are the only people who knew. And Lynn Meredith, an agent, was fascinated by me. He says, for a young gentleman, I'm just amazed how much you know about the Secret Service. I'm going to do you a favor. I'm going to give you Clint Hill's private address and phone number. Please don't bug him, but you can, send him a letter or whatnot. Boy, did I ever. And that's when Clint Hill was really angry at me. Then out of nowhere, the trade papers were talking a book called The Kennedy Detail by an agent named Gerald Blaine. I'm like, oh my God. He gets signed to Simon & Schuster, the biggest book company in the world, and the rest is history. But back to William Manchester for a second. I believe the phony JFK order off the back of the car was none other than Gerald Blaine. William Manchester's materials are stored at Wesleyan University. I talked to the archivist. Can I have Gerald Blaine's interview with William Manchester, please? Because he's credited in the book. Oh, by the way, Gerald Blaine adamantly denies he ever spoke to Manchester, but he confirmed to me in 2005 that he did indeed speak to him, as the end notes show. It shows the 1965 interview with Blaine. His is what's amazing. They tried, they looked for it, they couldn't find it. It was missing, along with a couple other agent interviews. And some of William Manchester's interviews, not just Jackie, some others aren't going to be available to the year 2060. 2060.
Well, don't forget when he died, his son opened the safe, and we thought, oh, here's the chapter, the missing chapter, and his son said, "No, I'm not going to release it." He did the same thing, the son.
Yeah.
I mean, her
Yeah.
and Robert
Yeah.
Kennedy went to court in New York, as you're well aware, just to explain to the
Oh, yeah.
audience.
There's a book.
Yeah, I mean, just to explain to the audience, this was a book that was sanctioned by the Kennedy family, by Jackie herself. And when it was about to come out, they released sections of it, I think, in Life magazine, or they were taking pieces of it and printing it to promote the book. Jackie went to court to stop the release of the book, right, Vince?
Yeah. Yeah. She ended up supposedly, she wrote some letter to William Manchester a couple decades later saying, "I'm so glad this has come around with healing and whatnot." Maybe she was, she aired whatever inside of caution. But the bottom line is, her explosive several interviews with managers never seen the light of day. And then several Secret Service agents, including Blaine. Again, here's where I get to. Floyd Boring was the assistant special agent in charge of the White House detail, the number 2 on the Tampa trip. He was riding.
Wait, let's just back up 1 second, because we agree.
Sure.
Me and you. We don't know that I agree with you, but I'm going to tell you right now, just so we know the people at home, because you're jumping over this thing. Three men that you believe are involved in the Secret Service and the conspiracy are the same 3 men that I privately, and I've talked about on the show, on the Secret Service episodes, are involved in the conspiracy. I have a 4th guy, but you have 3, and that's William Greer, Emery Roberts, and Floyd Boring, just so the audience at home knows that both of us are on the same page. I put in James Rowley. You don't. But I believe that.
I don't. I'm a little more conservative about him, but I don't rule it out.
James Rowley being the head of the Secret Service, later like sewn to the hip of LBJ moments after the assassination, and then kept there.
First person to shake his hand.
That's right. Really, I mean, it's hard to pull something off without Rowley. For people at home, James Rowley was what Hoover was to the FBI. And he had recently come into power, didn't he, Vince?
James Rowley used to be an FBI agent before he became a Secret Service agent.
Right, but what happened to the former head of the Secret Service? He, right before the Dallas trip.
Huey Bauman.
Yeah, Bauman leaves.
Yeah, the thing about Huey Bauman.
And Bauman talks about how the security melted down in Dallas, remember?
Yes, he said the building should have been checked. It was routine. That Texas School Book Depository should have never had to open windows. They should have been guarding that. In another major discovery of mine, we'll get back to Manchester in a second, but another major discovery of mine was the building rooftops, multi-story building rooftops, were normally guarded from FDR, Truman, Eisenhower, and Kennedy. I dredged newspaper archives, photos and films, interviews, and even that day, for millions of people, I have it on my YouTube channel several times, Ron Gardner. I only discovered this like 3 years ago. ABC's telling the world, normally the Secret Service checks buildings and guards building rooftops, and something like this should not have happened. It was buried in hours and hours of ABC footage, and I found that baby. Thank God I did. I'm just going to tell you right now, I can't say his name, but somebody had a channel with a lot of news footage, and the channel was taken down. I've saved that clip in case something happens to my YouTube channel, but it was buried out of nowhere. I remember I was bored out of my skull because a lot of the footage was familiar, but there were some gems along the way, and that's when I came across it. Like, oh my God, I got to say this. It took me hours to be able to download it and get a copy. But the bottom line is, back to the Secret Service agents on the back of the car on the Tampa trip. Floyd Boring was on that trip, and when I interviewed him, in fact, I interviewed him twice and corresponded once, even though he's one of my suspects.
First of all, just give us a little background on each of these guys. We covered Greer. Sure. We're good with Greer. Just give me a background on Floyd Boring and then Emery Roberts from your point of view, so they know who you're talking about.
Okay, sure. Yeah, Floyd Boring was the assistant special agent in charge of the White House detail. Was the number 2 agent. Jerry Bain, Behn, was the number 1 agent who I also spoke to. Now, Floyd Boring and Gerald Bain were on the vast majority of trips. If Kellerman was there, he was only assisting them. I could only find one other major motorcade that Roy Kellerman was on that looks like it was by himself, and that was Nashville, but all the building rooftops were guarded, and Kennedy lived that time, and there was a heavy police presence, and they were going very fast along the route. But back to Floyd Boring here for a second. He was a Secret Service since the FDR days. Before that, he was a Pennsylvania State Trooper. He knew Stu Stott and
Oh
some of
yeah,
their agents.
Pennsylvania. That's right.
And he also gained infamy in a good way, I guess you'd say, by protecting
Tell
Harry
us that
Truman.
we did an episode about
November
this, but
day.
tell the audience how he was involved in the Truman assassination attempt.
Yes. I think it was Oscar Collazo was the one he actually shot. He was one of several agents, a couple of them later on protected Kennedy, like Stu Stott, in November 1st, 1950, were guarding Blair House because the White House was being renovated, and President Truman was napping upstairs. He was planning on going to an event, and two Puerto Rican nationalists, a conspiracy, multi-guns, started shooting in broad daylight in Washington, D.C. and heading towards Blair House, took two different routes in there. And Floyd Boring was one of the heroes of the Secret Service for protecting Truman. He thought the world of Truman. He even said Truman was his favorite and waxed on to other authors about Truman and whatnot. Beginning up to Kennedy days.
Wait. I just want to stop you here because there's some controversy that Boring was not the killer of the two assassins, that the other agent killed him and not Boring, and Boring tried to take credit for it over the years.
Yeah, there's controversy about that. Yeah, you talking about Donald
Birdswell? Yes.
Yeah, I've heard of that, and I definitely.
This is in the weeds, folks. So I'm sorry if we're getting into nerd land here with the history, but that's
meanwhile Hunley's scrambling trying to find pictures to supply for the episode.
We're going to put up some photos and videos later. We'll edit.
Well, no, they're all going to be incorporated as you're talking. We're editing it in.
We'll put it in later.
But Floyd Boring, this came out in his JFK Library oral history that was only released in 1999 because little old me. He did it in 1976, was buried. That in the Truman Library oral history, he admitted he was on all the advance work for President Kennedy. He was on all the trips. If he wasn't there physically, he did all the advance work in conjunction with the advance agents. Like, in other words, when Wynn Lawson physically went to Dallas a couple weeks in advance and David Grant later joined for the Tampa trip, Floyd Boring was the architect. So he might not have been physically there, but he was doing it. And he was actually there on Tampa, which is the major trip. The Florida trip was the major trip for Texas. Okay. And also Jerry Bain, the number one agent, was taking his first vacation for the 3 years of JFK during the weekend assassination.
Where did he go on that vacation, Vince?
It's very
no. He didn't go anywhere. He didn't go anywhere. He went to his backyard.
He didn't go anywhere.
Remember, his wife got upset.
He was there at the White House right away. Like, wait, how can
he didn't go anywhere? He didn't go anywhere.
He didn't go anywhere. I don't know if he was dissing himself or he was set up to be out of the sequence of trips. I don't know. But he takes this vacation. Again,
it
verified by, of all people, Clint Hill. Staycation. Yeah. And Sam Kinney, when I spoke to him, told me about it. It was his first full vacation. He said, he had worked to the bone protecting President-elect Kennedy, and all during the Kennedy administration, he decided to take some time off. And, Roy Kelly might have been third string, but he's capable and whatnot. I always make the analogy. It's like going to the Super Bowl. Instead of having Tom Brady, you have the third string off the bench. And that's what happened in Dallas. But about Floyd Boring, keep in mind, again, he was in charge of, the advance work. So he knew the proper way to protect the president, which is very much in detail in Tampa. Agents on the back of the car for the 28-mile long motorcade, which is almost 3 times as long as Dallas. They're on the back of the car. Multi-story building rooftops are guarded. When I spoke to Russell Groubert, who was the lead motorcycle officer, Tampa officer, he told me, confirmed to me several times, all multi-story buildings in the 28 miles were guarded, and only the ranch-style ones weren't. I said, well, what did you do to protect them? Said we had military police or police officers actually guarding them because they're on eye level. So in other words, eye level buildings, they went by faster, and or they had officers and or military police because it's eye level. Anything above eye level, they would be guarding the rooftops, which Ron Gardner ABC talked about in all these newspaper articles. I found out FDR, Truman, Eisenhower, and many Kennedy trips. Okay, we're talking domestic and foreign.
You've shown the foreign trips also on your videos.
Yes, and that's standard. That's how they got around. Every once in a while, people used to do a gotcha game and say, "Hey, Vince, explain yourself, sir. I see this photo from Nashville. I don't see agents on the back of the car. Kennedy looks like a sitting duck." Wrong answer. Building rooftops were guarded. There was many plainclothes police detectives in the crowd, and he moved at a faster rate of speed. When somebody sees a still photo, anybody looks like a sitting duck.
That's ridiculous. Tell us about the movement of the media car and the truck in the front to the rear, Vince. how the media truck
Yes.
was always filming in front of them, except for Dallas.
Yes. That was standard. And Dallas Morning News reporter Tom Dillard testified to the Warren Commission and also spoke adamantly about
This
this
is Tom
in the
Dillard,
early
the
70s.
UPI photographer.
Yeah, well, for
Dallas
Dallas
Morning
Morning
News, I'm
News.
sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and he said it was canceled at the last minute. He admitted in the early 70s was by the Secret Service, and that put them in Chevrolet convertibles in the back of the motorcade, took them totally out of the picture. And there's so many photos and films of motorcades in Rome, Paris. I mean,
You've shown
Tampa.
all the. You've
I mean, the
shown
list goes
dozens
on.
of these in your work where they,
That's why I've done it
because
many times.
they
to
have
just
to be in
drill
the
it
front to
home.
film. I mean, where else are you going
Exactly.
to be?
You
You
will
have
need
to,
some brutal
right. I mean, if you're
amateurs.
using,
Imagine the plot would have been uncovered. You would
absolutely,
have had professional eye and ear witnesses in front of the motorcade filming feet away. So you'd have all their perception, smell, sight, and whatnot, and they're taking professional films and whatnot. They're taken out of the way. So we just have amateurs like Zapruder who got there on a fluke. He had to be prodded to get his camera and so on and so forth. Orville Nix used the wrong kind of film. Charles Bronson also took the wrong kind of film. But the bottom line is it was all these amateurs and only one, James Alkins, who was told to get away from the overpass and whatnot. But they were normally there. Normally, the limousines bracketed in good number by motorcycles. They blamed it on Kennedy. Turned out it's not true at all. It was Winston Lawson's sole decision. Alan Dulles of the Warren Commission asked him under oath, well, was there an order from President Kennedy by this? And he said, not in this instance was there an order from him.
well, let's talk about Lawton being waved off the limo at the air.
When Lawson was the lead Vance agent.
Because
Lawton,
you mentioned Emery Roberts. He's doing the waving, right, Vince?
Yes, yeah. Okay, so the other suspect of mine, Bill Greer, the driver of
we're going to show video of this in the show when it airs, so we can refer to it. But go on.
Great. And Floyd Boring. And last but certainly not least is Emery Roberts. He was the shift leader. There was command of the other agents in that Secret Service follow-up car. And I discovered this in 1991. 1991 to 1992 were banner years for me for discoveries and amazing things. And it came from Canada, and it was like many hours of WFA footage, ABC local affiliate. And I'm watching the footage, keep in mind, 1991. I'm like, what is this? The motorcade comes out of left field, and all of a sudden, it's black and white video, and you see an agent, not once, not twice, but 3 times, raise his hands up like this. And again, it's all the sequence is crucial. Paul Landis makes room for him in the fob car, gets into the car, and there's an empty space behind Jack Reddy, and the motorcade moves out, there's that empty space. I think what Paul Landis was doing is he was making room for Don Lawton, who 3 times has raised his hands up in the air in disgust from Emery Roberts getting up his seat and going like this. You can see in the footage, he goes like this and waves him back. Now, Don Lawton, here's the tragedy, as you call it. I spoke to him in 1995, but at the time I didn't know.
Oh, you thought it was Hank Ripka originally, right?
Hank Ripka, but that's why it gets confusing. Hank Ripka was also recalled in left field. He's also exists in films and newsreel. He's behind, and in his report, he admits jogging with a limousine, and then he ends it right there at left field. And only in a grainy newsreel and a couple still photos, you could see clearly Hank Ripka right behind Don Lawton. But back to Don Lawton, he did tell me in 1995 that, well, you always have regrets, remorse. Who knows? If only they would have had left agents on the back of the car. And they're like, wow. Okay, now zoom up to 2013. Don Lawton had died the year before. A military intelligence colleague of his did an interview for an obscure Idaho newspaper, and it's a female, said that Don Lawton was always angry about that and said, I should have been there. I should have been there on the back of the car, because he rode on the back of the car in Chicago in March of 63. And 4 days before, 28 miles long, he's on the back of the car. So some people try to say, hey, Vince, explain yourself. There's his duty roster, and it looks like he was assigned to Love Field. Well, all I'll say to this is not only, his actions at Love Field certainly don't look like a man who died. This is a blood oath. It says right here, you're assigned to Love Field. That's the way it is. The fact that Paul Landis makes room for him in the fob car, the fact that Lawton, to me, the first thing he says is, we always have regrets. Who knows? If only he would have left agents on the back of the car. And again, his colleague does this newspaper, very, very nice interview. It had nothing to do about the conspiracy or whatnot. It was she was talking about her friend, Don Lawton. And she said he always regretted, I should have been there. I should have been on the back of the car. Well, that debunks the whole notion that, Oh, he was tied like a ball and chain to love field. These men, to give you an example why everything's fluid, nothing's black and white. George Hickey was a driver agent too. Yeah, he manned the fog bar. Oops, well, what's he doing there? And Glenn Bennett, who normally was a PRS
Well, just to
intelligence
stop
agent.
for a second about the
Sure.
incredibly insane mortal era George Hickey insanity. If we could just get rid of that for 5 seconds. Just tell us the theory, and I think it's out of Australia. What?
Yeah, well, it originated with Howard Donahue, came out in the mid-'70s, like during the House Select Committee days, wrote the book of his wife, Katie, and Bonar Menninger was his, I guess, not so ghost author. But then it was like Colin McLaren, he had the Reels TV documentary, took it for her, called The Smoking Gun. And the whole gist of it is he's saying it was Oswald, but Howard Donahue's ballistic evidence shows it couldn't have been Oswald's gun. Aha! It was a Secret Service accident. The AR-15 bullet just miraculously went off by accident and blew out the back of his head. And that's how you can have it. It looks like a conspiracy. It was Oswald up in that window. And again, Howard Donahue was wrestling with this. My God, this ballistic. So this is the good news about the theory. That's why nothing's black and white. The good news about the theory is his ballistic evidence shows, my God, because he was a rifle expert and a ballistic expert. And Howard Donahue, there's no way that bullet could have come from Oswald's or anybody else's rifle in the Texas School Depository. So the whole thing was it was innocent, and it's totally untrue. Not only is there no eyewitnesses that said this, that it was an accident. And obviously, we know Hickey denied it, but you can take have a grain of salt because everybody denies everything. But the big thing is the Charles Bronson film. Now, what's a grainy film? You do not see Hickey rise in the fall.
I know. I just wanted to dismiss, right. I just want to dismiss some of the crazy crap so we can get back to the real stuff. You get it. I get it. Eric gets it. I mean, tell me how we get rid of James Files. What do we do about that?
No, James, I'm not in any files.
Yes. How about just explain to the audience about the James Files did it storyline?
Yeah, it's just tantalizing because he's a still living person who claims, and he had a rough background. Interestingly enough, he was on MSNBC's Lockup in 2008 and never once mentioned that he was there in Dealey Plaza and did the president. He had all that opportunity to say something, and he didn't. I never heard anybody mention about the lockup.
You also, like I have, tried to explain that the tramps have been exposed by the married couple who wrote the book out of Houston, the journalist there, about who the real tramps were. We can get rid of that. Like what's that?
The Fontaines, something like that?
Yeah, the Fontaines. The Fontaines. Yeah, they did that. And also
the arrest records came out, and the one gentleman, I don't know if it was Gedney or whatnot, in the early morning, he was on A Current Affair of Maury Povich, and he admitted he was the one. You could tell it was him older. And his daughter confirmed it, and the other ones were all confirmed. The police reports came out, and even Oliver Stone in the director's cut of JFK, if you listen to the director's soundtrack when you're watching it, he says, well, yeah, that's one thing I'd redo. I'd take that out. We didn't know at the time we were filming it. It was after the fact it came out, these arrest records.
Let's get rid of the George Bush one also while we're at it. George Bush was addressing some sort of committee.
The Kiwanis
Club, and somewhere in Texas, in Tyler, Texas.
Yeah.
Let's get rid of Ed Lansdale, who was standing in front of the building. Can we get rid of Ed Lansdale? Can we get rid of
Billy Lovelady?
Get rid of Billy Lovelady. I mean, we got it.
That won't die.
That'll never
Just
die.
Like Bill Greer shooting the president will never die. That's the number one theory I get from lay people to go, Vince, I think I did it. I think it's that damn driver. Turn around, shot Kennedy. See, they see Roy Kellerman's forehead and the Brill cream at the time in the Glean office, especially in poor copies they were using in the 70s.
I agree with you. I agree with Robert Groden that this is an unaltered film. We're both on the same page. And I've said that, if the CIA could discredit one piece of evidence, it would be the Zapruder film. And people who are trying to help them by saying this has been tampered with are completely playing their game, is my opinion on it.
Yeah, you're arguing your case out of court, so to speak. Then nothing's real. Then what's real and what's not? Everything's a conspiracy. See conspiracies in your soup. You can't trust the evidence. I don't trust that Zapruder film. I know Kennedy rocks backward and to the left, indicating shot from the front. I know the single bullet theory looks absurd when you see the actions of Governor Connolly, but the film's fake. Then it's like, well, then
look. I don't know why Doug Horn is interviewing this guy from the CIA, Dino, whatever his name is, who is who's a CIA operative. I mean, I'm trying to explain to people on the show, dude, the guy works for the CIA. He may have motivation. I mean, Doug Horn's a great guy, but that,
He is. He's done wonderful
right,
work. See,
right.
that's what I mean. That's why Nathan's black and white. I never throw the baby out with
Me
the
too.
bathwater,
Me
even
too.
with Howard. The Hickey theory. Hey, it's tremendous ballistic evidence. Hickey just didn't do
Right.
it. Doug Horn, I put on a pedestal. He's done some
Yeah,
wonderful
yeah,
work, but there's two disturbing things. He seems to leave open the idea that Greer shot the president. No,
It's
no, no, Doug. And then he
absurd,
also goes
absurd.
into that. I think it's book 5 of his wonderful series Inside the ARB. He talks his Bruder film alteration.
That is a kryptonite move on his part, bro. I mean, to really go at, I mean, that really is damaging to all of the research that's come before to do that. It's almost unforgivable in my book, what he's done, the damage to the reputation.
It's a shame. Yeah. It damages the other wonderful stuff he's done. Yeah. But back to the Secret Service, my 3 suspects. Yeah. I think it's with Greer driving the limousine. Thomas Shipman died the month before Camp David. It gave Bill Greer the opportunity to do it. Disturbing feelings, via his son, and also what the Irish Times uncovered about the family background. He only immigrated to this country between the ages of 18 and 19. Bill Greer did. He lived in Ireland all the time. Connie Tyrone. Okay, then you have the shift leader, Emery Roberts, who switched to Johnson as soon as Kennedy was shot.
Oh, yeah.
In fact,
I'm going with Johnson.
Yeah, Roger. Yeah. And Roger Stone, of all people, in his book, he updated the paperback version of his book, and he actually credits me about the whole Emery Roberts thing. The amazing thing about this is grist for the mill. Anybody who thinks LBJ did it is the fact that Emery Roberts became appointment secretary.
Oh, yes.
To LBJ while still an active agent. That had never happened.
He put him in a little desk in the hallway, Vince, to keep an eye on him.
I know Trump had Honorado, I think, was still an active agent. He just retired. He became kind of like his chief of staff, but that was decades later, and he was no longer an active agent at that point. Emery Roberts was still an active White House D2 agent. They're supposed to be apolitical. I even spoke to an agent, Dan Emmett, who wrote the book Within Arm's Length, and he said, that's a no-no. We're supposed to be apolitical. We don't care if you're Democrat, Republican. We work for the Treasury Department, now the Office of Homeland Security, since after 9/11. We're not there to do that. So he was deeply disturbed. I showed him the newspaper articles, which I reprint.
Well, he resigned pretty quickly after a couple of years later, didn't he, Roberts?
Yeah, he only spoke to William Manchester, and the interviews are buried.
Yeah.
Sound familiar?
Yeah.
He died in 1973 of a heart attack.
Yeah.
He was a pretty young man himself, and so one of my suspects was gone during the Nixon days, but he rose to become an inspector, was given a pretty high Secret Service.
What happened to the inspector who was there? Tom, what's his name? The Secret Service inspector with the hat.
Thomas Kelly.
Thomas Kelly. What happened to that guy? He looked very sketchy.
Yeah.
He looked very sketchy to me, Vince.
Yeah, he ended up testifying to the Warren Commission and the House Select Committee.
Right.
In fact, the House Select Committee, he was no longer in the Secret Service, but he acted under the behest former director, and he testified and tried to whitewash everything.
Right,
and,
right, yeah.
And just try to say, it's the best we could have done.
Although
he did say that Greer had proper training when people were trying to say he had no training. I was, no, he's proper trained. This with the cover and evacuate, they knew all that. But
I also agree with you that the car never stopped, that they were just brake lights, right, Vince? Or
yeah, it did not stop. It slowed down. That's why I discovered I have over 70 witnesses. It used to be 47 years ago when I first started doing this. I discovered a lot more since of eyewitnesses said the limousine either slowed or stopped. So I think the evidence is overwhelming. The limousine slowed. I don't think it came to a dead stop. I think when it looked like a stop, make an analogy. It's like if you're pulling back in your parking space backwards, you're going backwards, and you go 3 miles an hour or something, it's going to look like a stop to some people's vision, but you didn't technically stop all the way. And he was going 11 miles an hour at the time and even slower and whatnot. So, yeah, that's...
Well, am I crazy, or did Greer say he was downshifting and put his foot on the brake and was downshifting or upshifting that he rode in the limo in parades with it in third gear, and he was upshifting, and that's why he hit the brake? I vaguely remember reading that in Greer's.
That might have been from Walt Brown. I think Walt Brown tried to, and I love Walt.
I love Walt Brown. Don't get me wrong. Is that from Walt Brown? Or?
I think that might have been some sort of or that might have actually been Gerald Blaine. The Kennedy detail tried to say he was in parade mode and all this.
Parade mode, yeah.
He was testing the brakes. Damn it! It was not part of a conspiracy. He was checking the brakes to see if they work. And it's like, you got to be.
But he said he drove in a lower gear in parade mode and shifted up.
Roy Kellerman testified, we literally jumped out of the goddamn road. That's an exact quote to the Warren Commission. He says he's driven that limousine a number of times, and he was always never ceased to be amazed at the power behind the hood of that limousine. In fact, I have film footage on my channel, that limousine going very fast, and sometimes with agents on the back of the car, by the way, going very fast, and the bubble top as well. And so this whole thing about trying to give Greer an excuse that some people do, I don't buy it for a second. He knew what to do. He looked back not once but twice. He disobeyed a direct order from his superior and common sense and training, and he denied to the Warren Commission. In fact, he said for years, I never saw Kennedy. I never got sight of him. I just saw Connolly's bloody shirt. But you can see his superior film. He's looking at him not once but twice. And again, what Kellerman said, Greer then looked to the back of the car. Maybe he didn't believe me. And last but not least, Governor Connolly is an enigma too, because he denied for many, after his initial interview, I can't remember the gentleman's name from NBC, but he did a hospital interview with his Nellie stamp. I mean, Governor Connolly, his arms up in the air in a sling. And he says that he saw the president. He didn't say a word. But from that point on, all interviews till the day he died said he never saw sight of Kennedy. But there's a film that came out about 7 years ago of the motorcade on Main Street, and Governor Connolly is easily turning around having a little chit-chat with Jackie and JFK. And they can see each other right in the eye.
Talk about for a second the difference between the women's building and the trademark, how Connolly and the Secret Service, somehow Connolly tricks Bruno into going to the trademark as opposed to the women's building, which was easily defensible by the Secret Service, to this crazy inside catwalk crazy building called the trademark. Did Connolly bluff these guys into doing it? Because they obviously, Vince, as you know, voted against using the trademark and wanted to go to the women's building.
Right. Yeah. Jerry Bain, the head of the White House deed, said, we'll never go there.
Right. Jerry Bain said that.
Catwalks. Yeah. And Forrest Sorrells said that the women's building would be a much better building.
You could drive right into the women's building.
Yeah, it was a much better. And wherever the president goes, the people will go. They can spruce things up. They can do amazing things. But the Secret Service, their initial reaction, we're not going there. The head of the White House detail, the head of the Dallas office, Jerry Bruno, the Democratic National Committee advance man, who wrote that book called The Advance Man. Him and Marty Underwood were Democratic National Committee DNC advance men. And they even said if fate would have had it and they would have went to the women's building,
they would have fate. They fought about it quite a bit. They fought about it quite a bit, and we discussed it in detail in our episode on Governor Connolly, where Connolly fakes.
I have a chapter in my first book, and it's a little murky. It's a little murky. Let's put it this way. I could definitely see how someone could think that Governor Connolly was definitely swaying it more towards the trademark than the women's building. I mean, it is what it is. But I will say George Lumpkin, who was an intelligence-connected Dallas
military intelligence
officer
for Dallas police, Lumpkin.
Yeah. He was the sole debunker of them going down Main Street to Industrial. He said, that's nothing but winos and broken pavement down there. Yet meantime,
we were just there, and it was still winos and broken pavement, right, Eric?
That's true, yes.
Well, the thing about that is couple of things I'll have to say about that is that FDR went straight down Main Street. Governor Connolly testified to the Warren Commission. Main Street was the normal parade route, okay? JFK visited the slums of Caracas, Venezuela. He visited Harlem, so he was in Harlem. Paul Landis, when he does his Secret Service reports, talks about the junk yards and this typical suburban neighborhood we travel through in Dallas. Again, wherever the president will be, the people will be. Could we make an argument Industrial Boulevard might not have been as pretty as Dealey Plaza? Yes, but for security reasons, common sense, that was the normal parade route to go straight down Main Street. He'd been further away from the Knoll and the book depository, faster rate of speed too. Only to get him in front of a handful of people, they took that jog from Maine to Houston.
Let's talk about the jog, because you revealed in your book that there were CIA employees within the Texas School Book Depository. Bill Shelley was one, I think. CIA. Yes. I think Eugenio has covered this a little bit. Who else was CIA in that building, Vince?
Well, William Shelley was the big.
Bill Shelley, CIA. Bill Shelley is the building manager, I believe. In the is his title or right? Okay,
yes.
Yeah, just so we know.
Well, how this all came about originally about the motorcade route, because I didn't know what to believe. You see some newspapers, and I detail this in the first book, Survivors Guild. Some newspapers made it sound like he was going straight down Main Street. Some did mention the dogleg turn. In fact, a prospective assassin like Oswald, if you believe he did it, that people out there to do, what newspapers are you looking at? Some mention, some don't. It's all in text.
Mhm.
You don't know for sure. But I spoke to the head of the White House detail, Gerald Bain, September 27, 1992. He told me two amazing things that rocked my world at the time. The first thing he said is President Kennedy never wore the angels off the car. The other thing he said, I asked him, I said, sir, I know you were interviewed by the House Select Committee, but none of your testimony was made available. Keep in mind, it's the early 90s before the ARB even existed. He said, they asked me two things. They asked me about the Florida trip, the trip before, and they asked me why the motorcade route was changed in Dallas. I said, was it changed? He goes, I know it was changed, but why? I've forgotten completely. I don't know. People could say, Vince, I think he was lying on the second part. He knew, he just didn't want to say it. But the explosive information is the head of the White House detail, the number one agent, is confirming the motorcade route was changed in Dallas. And Jerry Kivett was an agent for LBJ, vice president agent. And he told me the motorcade wasn't changed on November 20th. There's other conflicting stuff saying it was the 18th, the 19th, all the newspaper accounts.
It's muddy. It's definitely muddy. It's definitely muddy.
And it's definitely muddy. And again, George Lumpkins trotted out to the House Select Committee, and he's the one that everybody talks about, winos and broken pavement. And he said, oh, okay, well, that's it. I guess we can't go down Main Street because of this one guy talking about Industrial Boulevard. Was that the main thoroughfare? 1936, they went straight down Main Street.
With FDR, yeah. So you have you have two CIA agents within the building, Vince. You have two guys, Bill Shelley and another guy you mentioned. Or Jim DiEugenio mentioned. I'm not sure who the other guy was.
It might be Jim DiEugenio. I'm not sure about that. Maybe.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to reread Jim's article, which just came out a couple of years ago about
DiEugenio. That's still amazing.
Well, you have D.H. Bird, who's the owner of the goddamn building, who buys it like a year before. I mean, that's insane.
The other thing is Roy Truly's wife
Roy Truly,
and another witness were talking about how they were deathly afraid of federal investigators wouldn't speak. We know about Howard Brennan was hair turned white as a ghost. He lost hair.
Wasn't Truly a JFK hater also, Vince?
Yes. He used the N-word describing his boys in the building. Mm-hmm. And he didn't like the way Kennedy stood on civil rights.
Right.
So there's the whole nexus of the building itself, where these people in the building, innocent little angels too. And there was no security force too, as I lay out in the book, that Oswald's rifle. Here's what I tell people. I said, oh, yeah, here's the good news for lone nutters out there. I believe Oswald's rifle was involved. Now, before everybody catch their breath and don't drop, go, well, how could you? I don't think Oswald fired it.
Right.
The rifle was used, of course, to lead back to Oswald. We went to ballistics and everything to match them to lead to him. Oswald was safely down the second floor, between the first and second floor, getting the coke and whatnot. Here's the other thing. I give this credit to Flip de May, amazing overseas author, Belgium, or I think he's Belgium. Mm-hmm. And he said that he did a tremendous investigation of the Manly Liquor Carcano, and so did Ian Griggs too. And they showed that the Manly Liquor Carcano not only, would have been very hard assembly to put back together, being disassembled, it couldn't be sighted in, it couldn't be used. So even if you were able somehow, if Oswald discarded a dime, which was very hard to do,
mm-hmm. Well, tell the audience how Bonnie Ray Williams, how long he was eating lunch in the so-called sniper's nest, Vince.
Yeah, it was up to at least, 12,
20, yeah. And when you go up there and you see the different photos that Dallas police, where they're constructing various sniper's nests, and Eric and I were just recently in the museum with another construction of a sniper's nest, it becomes absurd because, even Walter Cronkite said, the sniper ate lunch while he waited for the president. Of course, talking about the famous chicken sandwich that Bonnie Ray Williams, they spend 800 pages in the Warren Commission asking Bonnie Ray Williams about a chicken sandwich that had bones in it. Remember that, Vince?
Silly. Oh, yeah, vividly. But back to Oswald's rifle for a second, that can only work if it was fully assembled and sighted in. So I think what happened was Oswald's weapon was put into the building within 24 to 48 hours for the assassination. Oswald didn't bring it in disassembled. It was already assembled. That's the only way it could be sighted in and used. Then it was tucked in to the books. Yeah. Book boxes.
You believe,
discovered. Oh my God!
You believe, like I do, that Weitzman and these guys found a Mauser, though. I mean,
I'm very compelled by that. All the newspaper, on newspapers, radio, all the networks talked about it. These trained police officers talk about Roger Craig, Weitzman, like you
Well,
said.
Weitzman had a sporting goods store, didn't he? I mean, he knew.
Yes.
They all had a.
Yeah, he knew weapons. It's extremely hard to believe. Now, for John Q. Citizen, yeah, you can make a mistake. But
Not these guys.
all talking about a Mauser.
Yeah, a German Mauser is the war we just fought with the Germans, for Christ's sake. You know what I mean?
Right. Or it could also be another situation, too, and I leave this open, too. The use could have been used on Oswald's rifle, or it could simply be Oswald's rifle was put up there and was never fired, but it would lead to him.
I think that's my
theory.
Theory. That's really what it is.
Yeah. So I'm open to.
And they also wrapped it up with paper when they went up there. They took that paper and made that package. I mean, I think it's Lenny Mae Randall's and Frazier's mother who said he had nothing in his hands when he got into the car except his lunch bag, which he tucked into his coat pocket, right?
Yeah, and it wasn't long enough for
it was a little lunch bag he put into his pocket of his cheese sandwich.
And again, Oswald had no tool, no screwdriver, and he said even if he used a dime, it's pure speculation, and it would be extremely difficult. Ian Griggs did it, and it took a long time, and his bloody blisters and everything. But the thing is, again, Flip DeMay, look at his book, Cold Case Kennedy and the Lee Harvey Oswald Files. Those two books are amazing. And they talk about in glorious detail about how this weapon could not be fired without being sighted in. It had to be fully assembled if it was used at all that day.
That being said, let's move over now to the bullet hole through the windshield, Vince, because we were walking that off a couple of months ago, Eric and I, on the far end of the overpass, closer to the federal building where there's some trees and bushes over there where I think the shot came from. It lines up perfectly. Tell the audience what happens when the limo gets back to Washington, to the garage. From there on out, what happens from there?
Well, one of the agents was Dick Kaiser, who ended up being head of the White House detail in Nixon, Ford, and Carter years. He was one of the lowly Washington detail agents who was guarding the limo along with some other Washington field office agents. Floyd Boring, of all people, and Deputy Chief Paul Paterni, formerly in the OSS, were the two Secret Service officials who went over the limousine. And that's when, lo and behold, bullet fragments and skull fragments appeared. Interestingly enough, Floyd Boring tells the ARB he found a piece of Kennedy's skull in the Secret Service follow-up car. Wow. Now, Sam Kinney's one of many agents who said the back of the head was gone and his windshield and left arm were covered with blood from Kennedy's. That indicates a shot from the front and he's going backwards. Well, here's Floyd Boring telling the Assassination Review Board, oh, yeah, I found a piece of Kennedy's skull in the Secret Service follow-up car. But then he later amended himself, I must have been mistaken. I meant the limousine. Yeah, well, it turns out Dr. Young, I forget the first name right now, but he came out in early millennium.
The young doctor you're talking about. Was it?
Henry,
yeah.
I think.
That's it. And he said about how they found a deformed bullet and a skull fragment, and he makes it sound like it's the Queen Mary follow-up car. And even if they were both mistaken, it was actually a limousine. Well, what's this skull fragment? Sam Kinney told me he found the piece of the back of the president's skull.
Don't forget the kid who finds the skull fragment the next day. The
Harper
fragment. Harper
is Dr. Harper, I think it was his uncle, and Dr. Noteboom all identified it as a piece of the occipital bone. And I know other people like Dr. Mantic all confirmed it's occipital bone from the back of the head. Again, you see Kennedy flying backward to the left like an invisible baseball bat. Sam Kinney tells me that his windshield and his arm that's hanging out the follow-up car was hit with blood. He told me he only was interviewed one time, Sam Kinney was, by Today's Show in 1993. So I'm going to tell you some things that haven't been put in books. I found the piece of the back of the president's head on the C-130 transport plane inside the limousine, and they edited it all out. The only thing they aired was about Sam Kinney getting emotional about John salutes and a couple other real G-rated stuff that was any good. They edited it all down. They interviewed it for hours, and that's all there is.
Well, let's talk about the whole. You list how many witnesses visualized the front beveled out towards the inside of the limousine, hole in the window.
Several, I could tell. There's Avilia Glenn,
nurse
who later became a doctor.
She's a doctor now,
Yeah, Secret Service agent Joe Palella came out in an interview and he was adamant there was a hole in the windshield.
Just for people at home, this is a bullet hole in the front windshield of the JFK limo.
Where officially there shouldn't be.
Where it shouldn't be, and it seems to be beveled inward as if the bullet came from the front. This is a big problem for a lot of people on the other side of this debate, and Vince has pointed out who was involved in identifying it.
Yeah, that's one thing I did with the latest book, Honest Answers. Well, I do with all my books, but I laid out exactly who said it and when they did it. And Secret Service agents are talking about it. There's Secret Service reports, plural,
Yeah.
talking about it, about a hole in the windshield. And then again, you have Stavis Ellis, one of the Dallas police motorcycle outriders, saw it. H.R. Freeman, another
Well,
one saw
there's
it.
photos of it. So, I mean, it's not even
Yeah.
a debate. I mean, there's no explanation. There's nobody discrediting it. There's photos of the thing. They shipped. Kellerman says
what he said. Kellerman said it feels rather smooth today, and our inspector was shocked. The windshield feels differently today than it did then. He goes, "Yes, it does," which is grist for the mill for people like the late. Lost his name. The gentleman who was with me on the Men Who Killed Kennedy 2003.
Cyril Wecht.
Passed away.
Oh, wait, no, sorry.
There's a younger gentleman. He was a lawyer. Doug Weldon. That's it, Doug Weldon. His segment on the Men Who Killed Kennedy Part 7 was about the windshield, about how there was definitely a hole in the windshield. The windshield itself was replaced.
Wait, let me just stop you here because I want to go from the garage to where the limo goes.
Sure.
How it goes there. Helicopter up above. Does it go to Cincinnati? Does it go to Dearborn? What's the route it takes here?
That's, again, you want honest answers. I'll give it to you. It's very convoluted.
I know.
Because
that's what I'm at.
one line of thought is it went to Ford Motor Company. Another one, it went back to Hess and Eisenhower in Cincinnati. They worked on it there.
I've heard Cincinnati, but I've been laughed at saying there's no record of this. Am I crazy? Did I make this up?
No, you're good, Mark.
Okay.
Yeah, no, Hess and Eisenhower originally put the limousine together. And then, you would think common sense would dictate you would keep it. It'd be like tantamount to presidents still using Abraham Lincoln's bloody chair.
Yeah.
Hey, it's a chair, isn't it? JFK's murdered. This should have been like Ford's Theater. They should have put this away then, but they called it the quick fix. The government then and now, they couldn't afford a new limousine. So they renovated. They took out, they expanded, they made it black instead of Kennedy's midnight blue. They put a permanent roof on it and everything. So much was lost, but
does LBJ use this to go to Australia? Does LBJ take it?
Yes.
He
used that limousine, and Nixon used it for his inaugural in 1973, and he called it his favorite limousine. Secret Service agent Marty Venker said that was Nixon's favorite limousine, even though they made a limousine just for Nixon.
Yeah.
He loved to use the Kennedy one. He used it in January 73 when he was reelected before Watergate.
I think it was reinforced in the conversation by LBJ and Hoover that they were going to put steel plating underneath the bottom and reinforce the Kennedy limousine a little bit more, if I'm correct.
Right.
Yeah.
And what's really amazing to me, not to get on a tangent, is I don't know if he realized at the time what he was stepping into. There's video and photos of Bobby Kennedy and Ethel getting into the back seat with LBJ.
I know.
Of that renovated limousine. It's like, wow.
Oh, wow. I know. I thought the same thing.
Dude,
it's a freaky photo. I've seen that. The description of the whole car ride is creepy. I mean, the kids are acting out and John is doing stuff. And RFK says, if you stay quiet, I'll give you a flag when we get there. I mean, the whole thing is creepy.
It is. It's really, truly is. But evidence was destroyed. Not even about the suppression of evidence for decades and other evidence.
Okay,
was
so
destroyed,
we know the windshield was ground up in Cincinnati, Vince, or
I lean more towards the late Doug Weldon's. It's in Murder and Dealey Plaza, the book by James Fletcher, and also on the Men Who Killed Kennedy Part 7. Doug Weldon did tremendous work on this. And shows that, he interviewed a gentleman who worked with the Ford Motor Company for years. And he said, only when I'm dead can you talk about this. I think it was an audio tape in a letter.
Yeah.
He said, they had the windshield with a hole in it and they replaced it. And this was all covered up after the fact. And this man didn't want any remuneration or fame. He waited till he's dead. It's like the same thing. It's like with Dr. Kurtz, who interviewed a few people, Michael Kurtz. Michael Kurtz. Yeah. Crime Century and whatnot, interviewed a few people, and they also said the same thing. They did not want to be quoted until after they were gone. So they weren't looking for fame and fortune and remuneration and all that. So,
doesn't it for you line up with the frontal throat shot, Vince?
Yeah, I definitely think. I believe Kennedy was shot from two directions, definitely from the behind and definitely from the front. I think the back of the head was gone for a shot from the front. And I think throat wound, all those, medical people said it was an entrance wound, and even that day on NBC and other networks, they're all grappling. Wait. He was shot from the front, from behind. Like you see Frank Ryan, the other one's going back and forth, and they're all squinting up because it doesn't make any sense.
Well, Gerald Ford later admits that he moves the autopsy drawing to the. I mean, come on. This guy, admits in public that he did it for the good of the country to alter the autopsy, the sketch, the Warren Commission sketch from the shoulder to the back of the neck, Vince.
Yeah, Yeah.
That's Gerald Ford,
And
president, people.
yeah. And so it's just drip, drip, drip. You know, I always tell people it's a shame that a lot of information came out later, because in the early days of the case, other than critiquing the Warren Commission, we were in guess land, theory land for years. It wasn't until like the 90s really kicked in, and the Assassination Review Board came out, ARB, and released these millions of documents, that we started to get into big boy territory where the theory, like John Newman says, those days of theorizing are over. Now we have solid evidence now, but it was decades later at that point. Then we find out the Secret Service destroyed motorcade records for Kennedy's trips in the fall of '63 in January '95 after they were told,
Right.
don't do this.
Well,
do not destroy
so
it.
did ONI, destroyed their files on Oswald, came into the hearing and said, go f yourselves. We destroyed everything.
Exactly.
And
Destroyed
had a
everything.
subpoena, and they said we destroyed it all.
And just like these motor people say, boy, I'm amazed your YouTube channel. You got all these tremendous motorcade films and photos. And I tell people all the time, do you realize that the lion's share, 90% or more of these photos and films and videos have only been made public the last 5 to 15 years? They weren't available for years. So people are
Right.
looking for motorcade footage. They always see Kennedy's inaugural in Dallas. Very little in between, because they weren't digitized yet. They weren't
Right.
released yet. You had photographers who were still alive. There were strict copyright laws one time. And then a wonderful thing happened called Pinterest, that thing where people share millions of copyright photos. And copyright laws became very gray. That's why, like, it used to be anything with Major League Baseball, anything with American Idol on YouTube, they take down immediately. Now everything's up there now. So consequently, the good news is a lot of the stuff you could share now, but it's decades later. God, I wish I had this material back in the late 80s.
Okay, let me ask you something about film footage. The Montesera footage, what you say is a shotgun, the photo of, is it Montesera? Is that the guy's name?
Montesana, I think he's part of the was the last hours of President Kennedy, that DCA film
Right. Now,
compilation.
I remember vague, and I could be crazy. I remember them bringing the gun down from the fire escape from the roof. And that photo on the street of the men that you claim are holding a shotgun, the Dallas detectives in a circle, I remember that footage starting from the rooftop of them bringing down a weapon, and which has since disappeared, which is WFAU or Dallas News footage.
Yeah, well, I know that Robert Groden thinks it's definitely suspicious it's a second weapon. I actually lean towards that it's just an officer at a parade rest with his shotgun, like this, and the men
right,
are
but
talking.
that's the end of the footage, Vince. That's when that's the very end of the footage when they come down from the roof. And I don't know what happened to that footage. And I remember seeing it. It's since, because of what you're describing, the digital stuff. This thing has been deep sixed. The footage of them.
Yeah, well, it's a shame.
Yeah.
It really, well, but you know, it is. And people got to remember about the Texas School Depository. They had no security force,
Right.
no overnight security guards. Right. This is back in '63. Back in those days, people didn't even lock their doors.
Right.
And there was multi-companies, and many employees didn't even know each other in the building.
Yeah.
It would have been so easy for a professional and maybe a not so professional assassin or assassins to get in the building. They could have been on the building rooftop overnight in darkness and then made their way down. You know, people were so naive back then. If they saw somebody in a suit and tie, they might have thought, "Oh, it's a guard."
Where is Buell Wesley Frazier? He says he's in the basement eating lunch for reasons that are inexplicable. He's later arrested with a British Enfield 303, and
he believed the shots came from the knoll. And he also said somebody was coming from that direction with a rifle in his latest.
Oh yeah, that's we went over that. Yeah, that's crazy. That's just crazy. Yeah, I mean, he didn't even write the book. He says in the acknowledgments that he was said questions on the emails that he just responded to some questions by these. I
think it was Dave Perry and another lone nutter.
It was Perry, his son, and another lone nutter just asked him questions, and he responded as best he could. You know.
Now I wonder if they put that in. Say,
absolutely, bro. Absolutely.
With a gun come from the knoll.
Absolutely.
So that's
but the point of the matter is that Frazier himself was arrested, threatened with the electric chair at Huntsville, lie detected 2 times by Rose, and they seized his British 303 Enfield and his ammo. And he was a frequent user of going to a firing range in Dallas and was quite a marksman.
Yeah, and like I said, incongruously, he also believed the shot came from the knoll. He didn't think it came from up above.
Right.
And he did, now he comes out, he doesn't think Oswald was dead. The Oswald, I know, couldn't have killed anybody and stuff, which is wonderful to hear. Just like Marina Oswald, in later years, since like 1988 on, she doesn't believe Oswald did it, or at the very least didn't do it alone. But so that's good to hear in certain respects, but it kind of muddies the water. Sometimes you don't know what to believe. That's why you got to weigh and consider everything. In fact, actually, how this all came about in my latest book, Honest Answers, was I thought I was done after my fourth book, Secret Service, the medical evidence, and I kind of explored everything to the T. And I thought that's it. My cousin of all people says, "Vinny, I want to know who killed Kennedy." I was like, "Damn!" I gave her a stock answer, but I wasn't 100% sure myself. Is, you know what? I got to tackle this assassination. I got to say what we do know, what we don't know. In my opinion, what we do know, we'll never know. And I said, the good news about the book is I think I definitely prove a conspiracy. That's the good news. The bad legal certainty, I don't think we're ever going to know who did it. So we can prove a conspiracy. That's the good part. The bad part is, well, Vince, you go into court law and prove that Alan Dulles and Cordmeyer and some of your suspects did it? No. But I think we have a very solid case for conspiracy because people like Gerald Posner and Vince Bugliosi and other people have tried to say there is no conspiracy, but they've been debunked.
Well,
several times.
you say to read Reclaiming Parkland, which is a brilliant book by Jim DiEugenio.
Jim DiEugenio. It's later called the JFK Assassination. It's
right,
awesome.
debunking Bugliosi, and then of course the book Chaos by Tom O'Neill completely shreds him as a public official at that with that book. But yeah, I mean, there's quite a bit of information that you brought to the surface, and so did Jim DiEugenio, obviously, even with his website now. I mean, we were talking last week, me and Jim, about this Mammoth film that's supposed to come out in the fall, and the film by Sam Giancana's grandson that has now come apart from the Mammoth film, and he's using George Gallo as a director. So there's two films coming out simultaneously out of Chicago. Both of them are Mob Did It, Vince. Films.
Limited hangout. I mean,
limited hangout, bro. Thank you.
If you stretch it, you could say it's good for the movement because at least it's pro-conspiracy, but it's going to muddy the waters. I look at it this way. It's like when I was bold enough to send that 22-page letter to Clint Hill, and I showed all his colleagues that told me that Kennedy never ordered them off the back of the car, and him and Gerald Blaine got together, and all of a sudden, lo and behold, the books come out, and they try to blame Kennedy for it, and that was and that's not what I've been fighting now ever since. People that read Blaine's book come away thinking, well, Kennedy was a sitting duck. He didn't want those agents on the back of the car, which isn't true. He came out of that book because he saw my online material. In fact, he was one of the people that I don't know if you remember Goodreads used to have this thing. I don't think you have it anymore. It was called To Read, and they would put an upcoming book they wanted to read. And Gerald Blaine, of all people, had To Read, Vince Palamara, Survivors Guild. His attorney, I don't know if you know about they pulled some shenanigans on me, and I got some crazy stuff happening to me in my old place of employment. Twice I was called into an office, told that a gentleman trying to be one of Gerald Blaine's good friends tried to get me fired for my work. Tried to get me fired over my writing, say it's unpatriotic. He's casting aspersions on these wonderful patriots stuff. And then they were laughing. People at HR said, Vince, that's First Amendment rights. You're not nothing slanderous, nothing liable. You're okay. You're just criticizing. That's okay. But it was a shot across the bow. I think they were hoping before my first book come out, I'd be scared to death and maybe not come out with a book. Oh, nix the publication. I'll go away. Instead, I came out with a book, and that's when all hell broke loose because they realized, damn it, explain yourself now. You guys, like, he and me. November 25th, it never happened. The day of Kennedy's funeral, page after page of dialogue with men who died decades ago. And some of those gentlemen told me something the polar opposite of Blaine before Blaine's book was even a thought. And he said that during the funeral, James Rowley got all the men together and says, we can't let this look like Kennedy had this coming and ordered the men out the car. Even though he did, don't say anything about it, which is comical because it's in Gerald Blaine's book for many people to read, and they come away with, oh, they covered up the fact that Kennedy didn't want them off the back of the car because they didn't make Kennedy look bad. And he did that all inventing dialogue. And these guys would tape recorder. How do you know all these men? And these men told me something totally different. When Lawson was the lead advance agent, told me, it never came to my attention that agents were ordered off the back of the car. Speak to Jerry Bain. He'll tell you something different. Yeah, Jerry Bain told me something different, the number one agent. He told me that I don't remember Kennedy ever saying not having agents on the back of the car. And the list goes on and on.
I don't want to miss the opportunity while you're here for you and to explain about the cellar the night before down in Fort Worth. Let's because I have some questions I just want to get out. We're running out of time.
Sure.
Tell the audience about what happened at the cellar with the white lightning and the drinking and everything else, Vince.
Well, just briefly, I get to say that, drinking while in travel
and the IDs
status, being
lost and the guns.
Yeah. Well, a gaggle of agents, basically roughly 9 agents, other agents tagged along who claimed not to drink. But let's go with the 9 agents who admitted drinking. 4 of them were on the fall car. Clint Hill, Jack Reddy, Glenn Bennett, and Paul Landis, who's coming out with a book in the fall. We'll get to that in a second. They all had critical duties in the fall car. They were reported for duty at 8 a.m. Some of them stayed out till 5 a.m. Clint Hill, either 2 a.m. or 3 a.m., depending. But the lack of sleep deprivation, and alcohol, or both, are horrible for reflexes. And these men live and die on their reflexes. They're supposed to protect the president in a motorcade,
Mm-hmm.
and they're out late night drinking, carousing at both the Fort Worth Press Club and the Cellar. Some
That's
people
right.
just go with just the Cellar. What happened was they went to the Fort Worth Press Club
First.
and there was no food anymore,
Right.
and they drank alcohol there. And some of them admitted to, like, Don Lawton was there. I believe he was one of them. I had 3 beers, and some people said I had scotch and soda. I think it was a limited hangout. A couple of the press people I spoke to, it's in my first book, Survivors Guild, talk about, oh no, those gentlemen definitely drank alcohol. And we know the famous one, Jim Mars talked about, Pat Kirkwood, the owner of the Cellar. All those men were bombed. They drank pure Everclear.
Well, there was no liquor license at the Cellar. You had to buy a setup, and Kirkwood had his own moonshine that he would give on special occasions to people, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
But the official line is, hey, the Cellar didn't have any
Right,
alcohol.
right.
They had setups, and people brown bagged it, and they had
Yeah.
stuff under the counter. And again, they drank at the Fort Worth Press Club too, and they stayed out super late. They should have
Didn't they
been.
get a couple of Fort Worth firemen to guard the door of the president's?
They were joking as they were drinking carousing, saying there was a couple firemen there guarding Kennedy. Now, what if there would have been a planned attack on the Hotel Texas overnight with the first couple up above,
Mhm.
and all he had these untrained. It could have been a nightmare beyond anyone's imagining if something would have happened. A perfect time for a coup d'etat would have been the night of November 21st and 22nd when these guys were out. And Chief Riley, in one of his finest moments, Earl Warren.
Oh, yeah. Go explain this to the audience. Explain this. I know where you're going. Go ahead.
And Supreme Court Chief Justice Earl Warren, the head of the Warren Commission, was grilling Chief Riley under oath and said, these men, wouldn't they have been better protecting the president? They were in bed rather than some beatnik club drinking, carousing to all hours of the night. Shouldn't they have been fired? Shouldn't they have been punished? Well, Chief Riley goes, I don't think normally I would have, but I didn't want to stigmatize these men. Meantime, Kennedy's head's blown off, and we have decades of loss in government. We lost our president. It just screwed everything up. But he's worried about their little reputations. And meantime, it didn't hurt their pensions at all.
They suffered enough.
Didn't hurt their careers. Clint Hill went on to become head of the White House detail and assistant director of the Secret Service. So it's just incredible. They weren't punished in any way whatsoever. Their careers went on in the Secret Service, and some of them were promoted because people got to keep in mind, this is before Watergate, Woodward, and Bernstein, before there was investigative journalism. My mom and dad told me something. That's the other thing too. Yeah, that's a side thought. I know Abraham Bolden I spoke to several times, actually many times now. He adamant that one of the Secret Service IDs was lost that night. And that would have been beautiful because we know about all the reports of agents of mysterious repute found in Dealey Plaza. Joe Marshall Smith and others ran to the knoll, and the guy shows his ID. I recognize his ID, but something didn't ring true. It could have been a real agent. So for years, people said they're the goblins, they're CIA assassins. They could have been. It could have also been a real agent. Or it could have been someone who should have had no business being there, wasn't assigned to Dealey Plaza, and they were there for nefarious purposes. All I know is we go with the evidence. If it isn't there, it's time to go home.
Well, they also recalled all the IDs after the assassination, right, Vince?
Yes. Yeah, they recalled it, and they made a distinct difference with the Secret Service star and a little bit of the edge of the thing. And I think he tried to make the claim that this was because Chief Riley became Director Rowley, and we were trying to update the Secret Service, and they got a massive budget increase after the assassination. That certainly didn't hurt. So it's definitely grist for the mill. I know Abraham Bolden's adamant that the identity or the IDs were changed afterwards. And interestingly,
just so you know, Abraham Bolden, which we've done an episode on, first African-American Secret Service agent on the White House detail. Go on, Vince.
Yes. Oh, it's okay. And Abraham Bolden, his suspect for the agent on the knoll actually is a specific
interesting.
Harvey Henderson.
What?
Harvey Henderson was from Birmingham, Alabama. Oh, no, he's from Mississippi. Well, he worked in the Birmingham, Alabama office. He talked Mississippi. He was from Mississippi. Even Clint Hill and Walt Coughlin, another agent I spoke to, admitted that Harvey Henderson was racist. And he's the agent. I'll keep it clean. He used the N-word several times against Abraham Bolden when Bolden was temporarily assigned to the White House detail. And Abraham Bolden told me he would have the guts, he would have the fortitude, If anybody would have done it, it would have been old Harvey. Keep in mind, at the time, Harvey was off the White House detail and he was stationed down south.
Oh,
You know,
he's
not
mentioned in
everybody's
Bolden's
honest
book, I
story.
think, right?
He's
Yes. Oh,
in
yeah, that's right.
Bold's book.
Yeah.
He was his
Right.
nemesis.
That's
He
right.
was
That's
the
right.
one who drove him up
Yeah.
the wall and actually forced Abraham to not want to be a permanent.
Right.
Agents from field offices, if they are deemed good enough, they go to the White House detail on a 30-day temporary
Right.
assignment. And Abraham Bolden was viewed as, hey, let's try you out. He loved it at first. Everything was great. His shift leader was the other shift leaders besides Emery Roberts and Art Godfrey. The other two were good men. And everything was great until Harvey Henderson became the temporary leader of his shift. And that's when he said, "You're born an N-word.
Oh,
You're going to die
yes.
in
Oh,
N-word."
yes. Yes.
And there was a noose found
Yes.
around Abraham Bolden's
Yes.
effects and
Yes.
whatnot.
A lot of these
And
guys
this
were
is a
alcoholics, right, Vince? I mean, they were drinking around the
drinking,
clock.
partying, their own sex party. Everybody talks about Kennedy's private life.
Yeah.
The agents on the road had quite a reputation too. They were carousing. The cellar incident, the drinking incident the night before, was an isolated incident. I know that was Bruno said that those men could really put it away. He saw an episode of the Italy trip in November or July 1st, 1963, where an agent pulled a gun on the bartender because he was
Oh,
closing the bar
yes.
in Italy.
Yes, I remember that. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
and
That was in
so
Chicago, I
these men
think,
put it
right? Was
away.
that it?
Well, it was also other cities, but this was famously in
Okay.
Rome,
All right.
Italy, when they went overseas, only a few short months before the Dallas trip. So again, I just want to say something. The vast majority of these agents were good, honorable people. It was a Secret Service conspiracy. I have three suspects, and I think they were the key to the success of the nuts and bolts of what happened and didn't happen to President Kennedy's security. All it takes is a few seconds to lay down, and what happens. They might not have been the trigger men, but they allowed the triggers to be pulled. So to speak.
It's a machine.
And
It's a machine with moving parts, and I
especially when you got somebody like Emery Roberts, who's no fan of Kennedy. Oh, another thing too, Emery Roberts might have died in 1973, Mark, but in 1997, Seymour Hersh interviewed several agents for his Camel, and it was also an ABC special. And the agents are interviewed on TV. Tim McIntyre, one of the agents of the FOB car, talks about his anger towards President Kennedy's personal life.
Oh,
Before
right.
That, he mentions Emery Roberts' name by name in the book, but must be for legal reasons. On the TV show, he just says his shift leader. But the bottom line, he says his first night in the White House details shortly before the assassination. Tim McIntyre's pulled aside by Emery Roberts, says, "You're going to see a lot of stuff here, stuff about the president. Don't even tell your wife about it." And then Tim McIntyre laughs as they were on the road, and Emery Roberts was really concerned about it, talked about it all the time. What is if Kennedy's in there and the girl bites him in the private area and all this other stuff? But the bottom line is Emery Roberts is all concerned about Kennedy's personal life. Other agents are angered at hell at Kennedy's personal life. When Kennedy's killed, before the body's even cold, he switches to Johnson, becomes Johnson's appointment secretary. There's no doubt about it. I didn't see him. Kinney confirmed. Emery Roberts became appointment secretary. There's news articles, national news articles from 65, talking about how the press was wondering, the Prime Minister of Japan was visiting the Oval Office. What's a Secret Service agent introducing to the president?
Bizarre.
That's not his
bizarre.
job. And but Emery Roberts literally replaced Dave
Oh,
Powers.
yes, absolutely.
Dave Powers,
absolutely. Yes.
literally became Emery Roberts.
Well,
So
we're at a 90-minute mark here. This might be a good place for us to wrap it up and have Vince come back when we have a live show, Eric. We can have him on live. But I wanted to get this in the can with you and get the bulk of these questions that we've been talking about between the two of us. Thank you.